Blooming, forsythia blooming out there, flowering Heath. I've got winter blooming jasmine starting to bloom. Daffodils are up this tall. They're not blooming yet, but they're up. Your tulips are. We are. I'm still sharing my story about the benefits of, hey, you all. So glad you all are here. Ken at Waters Garden Center, the owner of Waters Garden Center for the last 20 years. Actually, we've been owners for the last 30 years. But Harold and Lorna Waters fully retired and passed the baton with, I don't want any responsibility, just pay your mortgage and I'm fine, 20 years ago. And so that's the family process. So we're second generation owners, and then you'll see a couple real tall, pretty gals that are working here. One's in the front, one's in the back. They're identical twin girls. They're in their late 20s. Those are our daughters. So they're training to take over the the third generation. So we're truly a family owned. And you feel that when you're here. So it was 60 years ago this weekend, spring, that Harold Waters started Waters Garden Center. So that's why we celebrate 60-year anniversary. And it's a bit early. I mean, you got to make sure that your stuff is cold hardy this time of year. But there's a lot of things that do really well in this bright days, cold nights kind of season. So you almost have two distinct spring seasons here. One is early spring, and that'll go from March 1 pretty much until into February, somewhere in there. It starts to turn nice. And then through about the end of third or fourth week in April, and then we get out of that frost and we get a traditional spring. That's when the tomatoes go in. That's when the geraniums go, the zinnias, everything can be planted starting the 1st of May. The locals use Mother's Day as the demarcation line between. That's the last frost date. May 8th is actually the 100 years of data. We've been tracking the last frost date. May 8th is Prescott. I think May 10th is Prescott Valley. We're all basically the same. So the locals just use Mother's Day as an easy demarcation line. So right now I'm going to go over some of the new things that are brand new for this year. It's either a new color, new variety, or you only find it this time of year. I thought that's the goal of this particular class for you. Not really, we can take some Q&A stuff and kind of make it, it's a small enough class. We can kind of keep it informal. And then I have a very special guest. So our growers are coming to the garden center tomorrow. So these guys live out in the fields. They develop, they watch the tree grow from this to this. They develop the new shrubs, and then they sell them through Waters Garden Center. So they're coming from all over. I want to introduce Mike Niemann. He is the sales manager, salesman for Utah and Arizona. Correct. Right, there we go. Got it. Sorry. You didn't have a business card. You got to help me out with this. I just know I like him. Mike, I like him. He sells the best trees in the country. Trees, old secret, there are different grades to trees like anything. There's a B grade, kind of contractor grade. It's probably got a crook, dog leg. It's probably started by seed. instead of by a graft, so you get all these weird variations. And then you go to the middle ground where they won't cut it, shape it as much, but it's a nice tree. It just isn't older. And then you go to the Cadillac or the Lexus or the Mercedes-Benz of trees. That's Mike with Schmidt family, J. Frank Schmidt. How many generations is that? You guys have had your 75th anniversary last week.
75 years.
75 years. So we've been a customer for 46 years. So, come over here, Mike. Yeah, take a microphone. So that way you can jump right in. So Mike walks us through hundreds of acres of farms, usually in August, and we go hand pick his trees. So most of the trees, the deciduous trees, those things that lose their leaves, fruit trees, flowering trees like red buds, purple leaf plums, those are his. And he walks us through and we handpick those. So I thought, Mike, you're here early. I would love to have you share that process and maybe the inside, draw the curtain back, and so you can get a feel for how they really grow these things. How old is a tree? How long does it take? Why are they so expensive? What are the Band-Aids on top? What's going on? Help us with that.
It's pretty,
No.
interesting.
The folks on, we're streaming this live too, so just flip it on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go. You're better looking already.
It's very interesting how we grow trees. People have no idea really, like Ken was saying, whether it's a graft or a seed or how you start a tree. But we start trees out in the field as a little tiny, basically a root. And then we graft the tree onto that root. And that's the very beginning. And that's why you always see this little notch at the bottom of the trees. That's what that is. That's where it's been grafted on. And then
Let's show them, Mike.
And then
I'll pull one up here. That's a great example of a graft at the base.
sometimes people see this and they think, oh,
This little nodule here.
there's
you see
something
it?
wrong with this, but it's perfect. So, and you see this little color paint on here? That tells you which way it was facing, what kind of tree it is, and which way it was facing towards the sun in the nursery.
So when you see the paint, that says that was facing south.
That's correct.
Oh, I didn't
And
know that.
the color tells you what kind of tree that is. So if we lost these tags, I could go to a chart, look it up, and say, Ken, oh yeah, that's a purple leaf plum. So
Cool.
and that does happen quite a bit. You know, the tags gets pulled off, or sometimes people take them off. They want to read it, and then it never gets back on there. So that's the initial graft. So one thing I want to say is for Schmidt, who has been around for 75 years, and they've got the guys that develop and come up with the new varieties of trees are brilliant. They know more about trees than I'll ever know. And it takes 15 years for us to decide whether we're going to grow a new tree. Because we trial it out in the field, and then once that tree is mature, 15 years, then we're going to decide, okay, that's going to be a new introduction into our portfolio. So, and that's why Schmidt does what they do, and they do it so well.
And you're checking that 15 years, you're checking for what? Bud resistance, or does it grow straight, or habit of branching, or what are you looking for?
Every and anything about a tree growth. So
Gotcha. Easy to grow, good shape, pretty.
Shape, yeah.
Flower color.
Cold hardy. Is it messy? Some trees get really messy, and then the customer doesn't like them. Everything. Does it bear fruit or not? So anything and everything related to the growth of a tree and how healthy they are. So that's the initial graft. And then this one.
Can we pull it down for you so you can touch and see it? I think I saw a graft at the top. I know there's one over there. I know I see a graft here. There's a graft here, although the tape came off. You can see it.
Tape came off here. So the purpose of that is we want a straight tree. We want perfect branching, and we're really picky about our branching and how we prune our tree before we sell it. And you can see how we've pruned it right here. So this graft, we'll cut this off basically, and then we're going to tape a new leader onto the top to make sure it stays straight, and it forces the branches below, forces them to grow out. So when you see that, it's not like it's a Band-Aid.
Did you get that branch on top from that tree? Or did you take it up from
This probably came from a different tree. Yeah. So, but you can see that what it's done, it's really forced the lower branches to grow. So it's a super healthy tree.
If you don't do that, what you'll get is a real skinny tree that's real tall, and it just falls over in the wind, so you don't get that sturdiness of the trunk. So it takes an extra several years to pull that up, but now you get the scaffolding for the shape, and you get the sturdiness of the trunk. So that's why their stuff is, so they're taking those extra few years to make sure this thing is gorgeous,
Yeah.
simply gorgeous.
Yeah, this is a super healthy tree with a nice thick caliper on this. So this would do very well in your yard.
Yeah, you'd probably only find this at one garden center here in the Central Highlands, huh?
That's
Probably at like
right.
Waters Garden Center.
That's probably
That
right.
is true. You'd only find it here.
Right. So this is a radiant crabapple. It gets to be about 20 feet tall and about 20 feet wide. And it's just starting to bloom right now. It's going to have red flowers on it. And then it gets little tiny red berries. Not big, probably like a quarter to half
Yeah.
an inch.
Like a dime
Yeah.
size or so.
Yeah.
Small.
So
The robins love the fruit on this, by the way. I noticed in
do
midwinter,
they?
you'll see a flock of robins just hit it and go and devour it.
Yeah. These are beautiful trees. There's a nice picture tag on that shows how much color it gets. But absolutely stunning. And I never realized really until the last few years, until I moved to Utah 2 years ago, how popular crab apples are. Because I came from a market that didn't really grow crab apples. So now
San Diego?
I'll just say Northern California.
Okay.
I have to say Northern because I'm not part of
Yeah.
any of the Southern part.
Half the people here just moved from Southern California.
Oh,
There you go. I'm telling you.
I have to be careful. I have to be careful because when I moved to, I live in Layton, Utah, and when I first moved there, I saw T-shirts that said "Don't Californicate Utah," and I was like, "Ooh, that's not me."
We love California. They buy lots of trees.
So this is a Crowder Vesuvius plum, KV plum. It's a purple leaf plum for the common people, that so you know. So it has beautiful purple leaves. It comes out kind of light purple, kind of almost, I don't know, reddish, a little bit on the reddish side, but then the beautiful pink flowers. And then in the summertime, or probably in about a month, it'll be beautifully purple. And it's about it gets to be about 20 feet tall and about 15 feet wide. So it's a little bit smaller than the crabapple. So it's a perfect tree for your yard. It doesn't get overly big.
You see the graft up here? This tape will just fall right off. We try to pull it off here at the nursery, but every tree has been grafted multiple times. It's kind of a pain, but it'll grow and you'll never even know it. But it confuses folks going, what is that? Did it get hurt? Did you put a Band-Aid on it? No, it's made just to get it looking. So how old is this graft as opposed to this looks like it was grafted last year or maybe 2 years ago?
Probably 2 years ago.
2 years. It looks pretty old.
Probably
Yeah.
2 years ago. And that's last year.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Right there.
I see it. I missed that one.
So,
Gotcha. So how old do you think this tree is?
this tree is probably 4 years old.
For
Yeah,
from
probably.
from seedling to
Well, yeah, probably 4 years old.
Gotcha.
From start.
gotcha.
So the beauty for us is we grow our own bare root trees. So we don't have to go to another tree supplier and buy their bare root trees and put them in containers. We grow probably 500,000 trees in our nurseries. And then we pick out the best of the best, and then we put those in the containers. So it's an amazing process that,
So you just talked something that I understand, but they don't.
yeah.
How do you do that? So you're growing them bare root. What does that mean? So you start them in rows in the ground, and then you harvest them out of the ground and put them in the bucket, or explain that process. Just tell us the behind the scene.
So once this tree gets to be once it gets that first graft on there, we're going to take it out of the production yard and we're going to go out in the field and plant it in the ground. And if you saw it, you would see a row of about 1,000 trees sitting in the ground, and they're about 18 to 20 inches apart. And they're basically maintained once they're in the ground for 2 to 3 years. Some smaller ones will only be in the ground for 1 year, and that would be something that would go in a 5-gallon container. But our specialty really is a 10 and a 15 and a 20 and a 28.
He's talking bucket size.
Bucket size.
Size of the root ball.
So they're put in the ground, and then in November, depending on how wet the ground gets and how much rain they get, because they're up in Boring, Oregon, depending on that, then they have digging machines that go right down the middle of the row of the trees and uproot them out of the ground.
No dirt at all, just bare roots.
So they're coming up out of the ground, and then they basically go to the side, and then we have our employees who follow behind it, and they go, and if there is any dirt, they'll shake the dirt off right there. And then they just basically throw them in a big bin, and then they're hauled to a warehouse. And in the warehouse, they're graded by hand. Every single tree
I did not know that.
is
Wow.
handled by an employee, a grader, basically a specialist, a grower. Basically, the guy who grew that tree is going to pull that thing, lift it up, and look at the structure, and then determine whether or not it's a valid.
So A, B, C, D grade, or blue,
No.
green, red, or trash pile. This one's good, or
it's good or it's gone.
out. It's burn pile.
Burn
Yep.
pile.
Gotcha. Or mulch pile.
So, and we're really picky, and I watched this process.
Yeah.
And I saw them throw trees into the burn pile, and to me, there was nothing wrong with the tree. But then as soon as I asked them, they would show me the branching structure and explain why that tree was not a viable tree. Nobody else does that.
Yeah.
Like Schmidt. Nobody.
Yeah.
So
What I love about the KV plums, every yard should have one of these. So you can get too much purple in a yard. Like some people put like 20 of these in their yard and going, oh, they couldn't find another color. What? There's greens and blues and yellows. But a few, this really spots well against the blues, the Arizona blues of like the oaks, the Arizona cypress. It really stands out, gives you dimension. And then what I like about Schmidt trees specifically, because we sell probably 4 different growers their trees. Yours are the nicest. And here's the reason why. So many of them are vase-shaped. This is a vase-shaped tree. And they start the limbs way down here, and you never see a trunk. So you see a lot in your neighborhood, you'll see a lower grade. The branching's coming from here, and it almost looks like a giant, like a bush on steroids. Their trees are purposely limbed up, so it looks like a tree, and then it will start to vase from that point. So that's by far a better quality tree. And trees are something you definitely don't want to take shortcuts on trees. If you take an ugly tree and plant it in the ground, as it matures, it gets uglier and uglier and uglier, just bigger. If you take a pretty tree, you put it in the ground, it just gets more majestic as it grows. So it's just one of those shrubs, not red tip photini, you throw it out there, it doesn't matter, trim it, it'll just cover for its ugliness. Trees though, because if they're dog-legged, they stay that way. If they're scarred on the side, they stay that way. It just becomes more pronounced. So really focus in on your trees. You want to hand pick those in your yard. You don't want just a landscaper to go, I'll throw in 3 of those for you. Yeah, I hear a lot of horror stories with that. But anyway, that's just my tip on your trees. Why you're our number 1 supplier for trees.
yeah. Yes, sir.
Is there any benefit or would it be harm to the tree in keeping above ground and up for its life? Keep it short?
Well, yes. They don't like to be in the containers for a long time, and it's between the cold and the heat. So the roots are going to grow, especially in this plastic pot. The roots are going to go. This is fully rooted, so the roots are touching the sides of this container. So at some point, they're going to get cranky. So let's say it gets really super hot outside. That heat, that pot is going to get really hot, and it's going to fry those roots on the tips. And then if it rains and it gets super wet, then those roots are going to rot. So, I mean, I know some people keep trees and plants in containers for a long time, but they do much better in the soil.
These are too big. These 2 varieties, well, I would probably discourage that because they are pretty big, deep-rooted, large. You could probably grow that in a nice glazed pot for 5, 6, 7 years, and finally it's going to bust the pot open. So it would be better to be in the ground. But you can do, like I grow Japanese maples in containers. They've been in there for years. Dwarf fruit trees. I've got a beautiful peach tree. It's got a trunk on it like this. The pot is like this big. It's a big boy, but it's been there for many, many years, and it produces every year. I think you could do some smaller trees like a butterfly bush or red tip or red buds, the smaller trees. I think you could do those in pots. Big is better though. Yeah. Yep. That would do just fine in a pot because it doesn't get very big. I mean, they're just like this tall and this kind of, they're just this big, pretty weeping thing. So the weeping red bud's the same way, weeping pussy willow, all that weeping stuff. Generally what that is, that rootstock is on a very, it's grafted onto something that keeps it smaller. So also a lot of our trees are trying to focus in on rootstock that handles clay soil better instead of sandy soil, or alkaline water instead of alkaline soil instead of acid soil. So we're picking a lot of the rootstock so they produce better here for us in this mountain region for us. And they help us with that. So anyway, I think that'd be fine. We can talk offline and kind of get you honed in, but bigger pot, just get a nice big pot, more soil the better. Don't fill it with rocks or any other crazy thing they tell you to do, styrofoam peanuts or Coke cans, just soil, top to bottom, more soil the better, and you'll get years and years and years out of that. Yeah. The other secret too, if you're doing containers, just because we had a couple cold cycles, I have over 50 pots and a lot of big stuff in containers. They're all growing things right now. If we see it getting really cold, I'll go out the night before, the day, several days before, because you know the cold's coming. And I'll just make sure everything gets hydrated before the cold hits. A dry plant is damaged by the cold. A moist, hydrated plant is not. So yeah. Doesn't freeze. Nope. These things have antifreeze in them. As long as the moisture is going through the structure of the tree, they have naturally occurring antifreeze. If they're dry, they can't move that antifreeze up and down. You get either tip burn or winter burn is what we call it, winter kill. So it can happen out in the yards too. It can happen to like your hedges and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen, but a lot of times orchards, they know if there's a hard freeze coming, they turn their sprinklers on, their overhead sprinklers on.
Yeah.
And that ice forms and insulates the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your definition of cold here? I just moved here from Phoenix.
Sure. Everything below 80 for Phoenix, folks. Cold to me is going to be that low 20s. Once you get into the teens, it's permeating cold. You can just feel it bite you. Single digits for sure is cold. Sub-zero is miserable. So we don't see sub-zero really here. I mean, every 10, 15 years we can see it for a moment. But usually single digits, like we've been, I think 11 is the lowest I've seen in my yard this year. And we're past the cold. We won't see that again. I think it was 20 this morning or something like that. So that's going to be more normal. We're past that cold. We'll definitely get frost. Frost is 32. Not that permeating, freezing things, cold. That's what damages stuff. So what else you want to tell us?
That's good.
So tell us just something personal. Are you like a fruit tree gardener, a shade tree gardener, or would you rather just go with evergreens?
Well, I like color.
Okay.
So I like I always buy a lot of annuals.
Yeah.
Get those for the color. And then I don't do a lot of fruit trees, but I do a lot of vegetables.
Veggies.
So-
Okay, you're a veggie guy.
I'm a veggie guy.
There you go. And how long have you been working for Schmidt?
So I've been with Schmidt. This is going on my third year. I've been in the business for 35 years.
Yeah.
I started out working in the Kmart Garden Center in Chico, California. And that's what
We got special. Come on down. We've got Pansies.
we used to sell.
With a hot dog over here.
I still hear it. So we used to sell Italian cypress. I was telling somebody the other day for 99 cents in a metal can, and we'd get in like 3,000 of them, and I hated those.
Yeah.
Cypress. But that's how I started, and then I've been in it ever since. And I've worked for some big, large companies, and I've visited garden centers across the United States, and this is one of the premier garden centers.
Which one? Waters Garden Center? Yeah,
So
thank you.
truly, yeah,
Yeah.
across the
you.
Midwest to the East Coast.
You don't have to say that. You can still have a commission. I'll buy your piece. You're fine. You have
Yeah.
to stroke me.
So that's about it. So any
Thank you.
questions for me now?
Lastly, then I'll release him and
I have a large evergreen tree, and the top is all, it's just all there. And the other one next to it, which was about the same age, is 3 or 4 feet taller now. It doesn't have a leaf.
Doesn't have the central leader.
No.
Yeah. What do you think, Ken?
I think you lost your central leader, which
Yeah.
you could probably train a new one. So pine trees, a lot of the evergreens have a central leader, a trunk that goes straight up. And if it gets dry some winter, you can lose that, or aphids get on it, or bark beetles. Sometimes you'll lose that leader. Stress, just transplant shock. So what you'll find is the side branches that come off, you can take the strongest one, take a piece of bamboo and just kind of tie it. And once you bend it up, it will naturally start taking off, and it will become that leader for that tree. It's an easy way to get past that damage or whatever. Otherwise, it'll just start to look more and more Dr. Seuss-like, and it won't actually have that leader, and you won't ever really like it. So it'll kind of bug you. So that's probably why. And you're not the only one. I've seen that a lot. Or snow will come and break the tops. You'll see that on like the cypress and stuff. That's how you do it. Take a piece of bamboo and that tie tape, that green flexi tape. Just take a couple, 2, 3 here, and then just bend that one up, and it'll just take off. That'll have the most growth next spring. It's kind of a fascinating thing. Did you know that Colorado blue spruce is not really blue? It's green. You can wipe that blue off with your thumb. It's a secretion the tree throws off to give it that blue. So as it matures in your yard, if it's not blue as you want it to, sometimes there's silver blue, you can give it aluminum sulfate, and it's aluminum it's picking up and putting on top of the foliage. So you can turn a tree back into bright silver again just by throwing some aluminum sulfate on it. So those are things we can show you later, some insider tips on how to make things grow better. Mike, I'll let you go, and I'll go over the flower stuff. You can try to put the microphone right there. Appreciate it. Give it up for our Schmidt rep. You know, I've heard that over and over. Once you get in this industry, you'd never go away. It's like you're always here. So, Ken Davis, happy 7th anniversary, by the way. 7 years today. We started working together. Well done. And it's been fun. We've gotten better. We're learning together. So Ken is my retired guy. And I just put an ad out and said, "Are you retired and bored? I need some help." And he's a software engineer guy, and he does all of my social media, newsletters. He makes sure I get all the deadlines, podcasts, all that stuff. He does all that. I write the content, but he puts it out there, so you're reading. He touches it before you get to read it. So anyway, thank you for all the help.
Just remember, this is now recorded, so the next
Yeah. There you go. Keep trying, my friend. Keep trying. It's surprising. A lot of folks don't believe that we can grow so many things that we do. We have enough chilling hours here in the mountains. Let's find out how many. This is your first garden season here in the mountains of Arizona. Oh, over half the group. Just over half the group. Great. Welcome to God's country. You're going to love it. You're going to make some mistakes. Don't Phoenix. Everything you learned down in Phoenix, erase, reboot, start over. Nothing's going to work down there up here, including when do I prune roses, when do I fertilize, when do I do any of that. So you want to kind of what is our environmental flow of things, and you'll get familiar with that. But if you make a mistake, you can, for $5, you can put a new one in and recover. But we learn by making mistakes gardening. The goal of this is to help you make less mistakes. So at least you're making mistakes go in the right direction. But we don't want you ever going backwards. But sometimes I find gardeners, new gardeners especially, they think they're puppy dogs or something, like they just killed a cat or something. It's just a plant. So we do have enough chilling hours that we can grow a lot of the things the Midwest folks really like. That Midwest, that Chicago, that they call it the Great Garden Arch or Circle, where it gets cold. We're probably the lowest southern point where you can start. It's our elevation that's doing this for us, where we can grow azaleas, rhododendrons, and hydrangeas, whereas Phoenix cannot. They can't grow lilacs or forsythia, but we can. But we're just a short distance away. So this is one that confuses a lot of folks. This is it's a dwarf rhododendron, really. Rhodies do exceptionally well here. And so this one will get up about, most rhodies get really big, and I have those too, but they were in such big buckets, they were hard to get up here. So if this one was smaller and cute, it's starting to show some color. Another week, it'll be in full bloom. This one makes up for the smaller flower size by just having more buds. It'll just be covered with flowers. It likes the shade here, though. That's the difference. Where are you going to plant it in the yard? So this would be in a container on the north side of your house, next to the patio. Those are places that you want to put this. It'll take some sun, but that midday in June, it's going to be rough on it. So we only have rhododendrons, really in the spring season. They'll start to bloom here over the next couple months, and once we run out of these, that crop is gone, and then we start bringing in barberries and Rosa Sharons and the summer blooming things that come our way. So this is when you'll find some beautiful selections right now that you won't find in just 8 weeks. So that peonies, that's another one. A lot of folks from the Midwest love their peonies. They do really, really well here. But you'll only find them in the spring. So I will literally run out. I think I've got a peony garden column. Here's how to grow peony. As soon as that thing releases the first week in April, they will be gone like instantly. So you kind of want to pick those yourself before, while the picking's good, and then you can grow those. Count on that peony flower every year. It's a perennial, comes back year after year. You see them in all the garden magazines. So hydrangeas, a companion. Oh, what's that? I've got peonies right now. They're just starting. They actually look like buckets of dirt. You're almost going, what? $47 for that? You got to be kidding me. But you can start to see the eyes they're starting to grow. And once they start growing, they grow fast. And they get into these, the English peonies get about, 2 feet tall. And then we also have some Ito peonies where they graft an English peony onto a tree peony root. So now you get a huge bush, gets up hip high. The flowers are as big as your hand, and you get the funky colors. So yellows, you just don't see yellow and peony, but you do with the Ito series. So these are 2 additional shade-loving plants. This is a Linton rose, or Hellebores is the Latin name that they use. This is one we'll only have this crop, and then it's gone. It's a winter bloomer that shows up. In fact, these 2 here, these kind of bloom at the same time. This is more of a sun plant, it's more of a shade plant, but they're both perennials. They come back every year. But I bring this one because it's the chocolate color. You've never seen that before. I'm fascinated. Usually it's a pink or an apple blossom color. It is evergreen. That is, when it's done blooming, you'll just have this pretty thick, leathery kind of foliage. And animals don't eat this. Javelina, rabbits, that kind of stuff, seem to leave it alone. But more in the shade-loving section, kind of like the rhodies. This is, I'll show this one in a second, but you plant those things together. This would grow great in a container because it's evergreen. Underneath that overhang on the back deck, back patio, it'll take the cold. This is like a zone 5 or 4. It goes down to minus 20 or 30 degrees. So crazy, something we'll never see. So it's a great little perennial for here. This is Paeris, or lily of the valley. There's a lot of lily of the valleys. Now, normally, it's solid green. So I brought this one up because you've never seen a variegated variety. Normally, this is a solid green foliage, but now we figured out how to have this cream. What did I just do? This cream-colored tip around it. And I think this one, from a designer aspect, it's a shade plant. Sometimes green just fades in that shadowing. So this lighter color foliage is brighter. It actually shows off into the canopy of that pine tree or in the darker corners of your gardens. This one will glow. This is fully mature. This is a really old one. This is as big as it gets. It'll get a little bit bushier, I guess, but it's kind of a tease to gardeners. It's had these flower buds on for 3 months. It's kind of like lilacs. They've had buds on forever. When are they going to bloom? When are they going to go? We're just starting to see these crack and starting to open up. When they start to bloom, we put them on end caps. And so people will drive by and go, what's that smell? Because they've got a sweeter smell than even lilac or peony does. It fills up the garden with this beautiful, beautiful fragrance. So lily of the valley is a great one. We've got green ones. We've got red-tipped ones. They're all the same. Just blonde or brunette. Which one do you want? Doesn't matter. They're the same. They bloom similar, but they're just a great shade plant for you. Evergreen. That's its winter look. Oh, I guess I should mention this one because it bloomed at the same time I touched it. This is another one we'll get a couple hundred of these and then we're out. This comes in typically February. It's blooming all around town right now. This is flowering heath or heather sometimes. This is actually a heath. They're kind of related. It's an alpine plant. It's got a ferny look to it. So it's evergreen like this. So it's got this nice lacy fern look. I have grown this in full sun. I've grown it in a container out in Prescott Valley where the wind blows. I've grown it down in Skull Valley where the elk are just roaming around munching on stuff. They don't bother this. So it's just a bulletproof little plant that looks good with or without flowers, but it's been loaded up with these flowers for, again, 3 months. It's just now starting to bloom. But once these crops are out, I won't get more. When I saw a flowering, I was in last weekend, and I saw this beautiful thing. Well, next year we'll see you. So it's really early. A lot of folks will see this or do some research and go, well, in 10 months we'll have it next winter. We'll have it back in. But it's flowering heath. It comes in white or this pink kind of color. It would be great in a container. It's really pretty. It's really pretty because it's so shapely. It's got this nice mounding shape, and you don't ever prune it. It just looks groomed all the time. Yeah, it's an easy one to grow. Yeah. It'll take sun or shade. It'll take cursing. It'll take kicking dirt at it. It's just tough. It's a great little plant. I think they're down in the perennial, the lower greenhouse down there. So we're starting to shift things around, just so you know how we set things up. Right now it's cold. We got new crops. We're trying to acclimate things, so we're trying to keep them healthy. So, but when we're into the thick of it, that lower greenhouse, that'll be all of our perennials. They come back every year. Hundreds, thousands of units, varieties. Just outside that greenhouse, you'll see big shade structures. That'll be our shade garden area. So rhododendrons, azaleas, lily of the valley, they'll all be down there. This, where we're sitting right now, this will be vegetables. Of course, it's too early to plant tomatoes, so don't do that yet. You new folks, you'll be tempted to put them in early. The frost will take them, so just kind of, I can maybe mention that if we get enough time. So this will be herbs, vegetables. That'll be annual flowers, and then lots of perennial shrubs, evergreen trees, fruit trees, shade trees. That's kind of the layout, real quick. So forsythia are starting to bloom all around town right now. So you see the yellow bush? That's this guy. It's every yard should have at least one. It's just so easy to grow. Deer don't eat it. It doesn't take hurt. You give it a haircut in the winter. That's all you got to do, and it just it's covered in yellow flowers. And then after it's done blooming, then it will put this pretty leaf on it, about like that big. This solid green, just a nice, rich, deep green to it. This is probably the #1 seller for shade and hummingbirds. This is called Salvia or autumn sage. It gets up maybe knee high or so, and then kind of a bush ball-shaped thing. Mine do not look like this. We brought this out of Tucson. Got a buddy of mine that does all this, part of that xeriscape native kind of stuff. So they're about 2-3 weeks ahead of us. Up here, this will start blooming in April, like this. So we're 2-3 weeks off before you see it growing here. But this one, the hummingbirds just think they've died and gone to heaven. With this flower, they love it. Blistering hot sun, then pull the blow dryer out and give it more heat. It loves heat, surrounded by asphalt, concrete. It loves radiant heat. It loves heat. So it's just a really tough little plant. Doesn't look tough, but I water once a week or so. I don't know, not that. Treat it like your trees or whatever. So it continues to bloom, usually April through October, something like that. Maybe first part of November. Depends on the weather. I don't know. Just there's some shoulders there, but long bloom cycle, which is the beautiful part. So insider tip with this, just one gardener to another. What I do, this one it loves the heat. And I have made a mistake. I pruned it back too soon, like in February, January. And then cold came and it killed it. So with these, I always leave the foliage up and I prune it back in March. And I've never lost one since. Just kind of an insider tip on what I've found really works. I do fertilize it pretty regularly. I should cover food because it's time to fertilize too. I'll show you how to keep this thing blooming. Let's go down the line with the flowers though. Snapdragons and lilacs. Snapdragons are a wildflower here. They just reseed and come up. They're tough. Animals don't eat these. It looks delicious, but javelina and deer and rabbits have antelope. They don't bother it, and it just keeps growing. It just does this. Now, this one has 2 bloom cycles, pretty much. It loves the cool nights. So it will bloom now through the end of May, and then it'll stop blooming, but it'll have this nice green foliage. What I do with mine is I'll take these spent flowers, I'll cut it off, and I'll fertilize it, and it will come right back into bloom, usually midway through the monsoon season. So by the end of August, September, it blooms right through the end of the year. So you get 2 really big flushes of growth. The snapdragons, they come in every color you can think of. They're just great hardy plants. I think they're hardier here than anywhere else in the country. Snaps. Doesn't look like much, it's a twig in a bucket. I brought this one because lilacs, we're famous for our lilacs up here. And so that big fragrant blue flower, the common or old-fashioned lilac that your grandparents grew, that grows really well up here. What we're trying to do is introduce more colors and then some shorter varieties because lilac are generally really big. I mean, they get really big. So you can keep them trained down, but that's just work. So this is a dwarfed variety. It's a dwarf repeat blooming lilac. They call it Bloomerang. So for the Bloomerang Lilac, we've got 2 or 3 colors here. So we introduce another color. This one happens to be a dark purple. That's actually the color. It does smell just like a large lilac. The flowers are a little bit smaller. So regular lilac's going to be as big as my hand. This will be half that size, but it puts more of them on. I've had one in the ground next to my patio 5 years. It's now about this big, cutest little thing. I hardly trim it ever. It's about to go into bloom. Just a great, if you need a smaller space, you don't have room for a huge lilac, they make smaller ones. That's the reason I brought this one. Very unusual. It would stay easily in a pot. Yeah, easily. Sun, at least 6 hours of sun. Also, we're trying to get more, I compete with Home Depot and Lowe's. They're my main competitors. And Amazon. I'm going head to head with all of them. And so, but they can't do the quality. They can't do this. You can't ship this in a box and get it to your yard. It's going to sit on a dock down in Phoenix and die before it gets up to you. And I know that, and they know that. And so, but we're trying to get better with our website too. So on Monday, we've been soft launching it. Now it officially goes full on. You go to Waters Garden Center, it's got a shop button. This will be on there. And it won't have generic Google stuff. It will have, this is our sign. This is how it grows here. Here's how much sun, how much wind, how much water it will take by every tree variety, by every shrub variety. So if you want to know if we have something, watersgardencenter.com, and it'll show you what size, how much. You can buy it there. I'm finding most folks aren't buying it online. They're going, oh, I saw you saw, and they're coming in to hand pick it. Although I just had someone from Chino, maybe this is Chino, anyone from Chino Valley here? Oh, sorry, I won't put them down. So they're from Chino Valley, and they're going to do a whole hedgerow of evergreens for windbreaks because it's windy out there. And I could not sell them. I'm a good salesperson. I know what you're looking for. They want a whole row of these. They went home and spent $1,800 on the website to secure like 10 of these. Went, but you could have just handpicked them. Why did you go home and buy it there? Why didn't you? What? I don't know how people are using things anymore. It's mind-boggling. Oh, this is Sedum. So this is I brought this for the Southern California folks. There's a lot of Sedums, and most of them are tropical. That is, they'll die in the winter. There's a handful that are perennial. That is, they're hardy enough to do right through winter. And this is one of them. There's some chartreuse. I mean, if you want the right sedums in your yard, come to Waters Garden Center. We'll have the varieties that are for here that aren't going to die in the winter. What's that? You poking at me? I know. That's for the folks online. We know you're there. We're trying to include you. Come on in and see us. We're live streaming this too, so on our Facebook and YouTube channels, just so you know. This is full sun. I would say at least 6 hours. If you give it more, it'd be better. Just gets these long tendrils. I like to design this with rocks or boulders, rock gardens and stuff. And it just kind of spills over and flows through. Looks really pretty. Yeah, it's really, really pretty. I don't know. I think it's pink. It's got like a fluorescent, like cacti flower. It's like a day, then it's done.
Are there different colors?
There are different colors. Yeah, lots and lots of colors. And a companion is this one. This is my new favorite perennial. This is Rainbow Ascot Euphorbia. It is like a succulent, but it's much bigger. So this will get up. Mine are about this big at home, and it's kind of vase-shaped like this. You're seeing it just starting to bloom. It's got kind of a Dr. Seuss kind of flower. It's the same color as the foliage. It's really funky, but it's evergreen. This is how it looks right now in dead of winter. It's beautiful vase-shaped evergreen perennial. And then the flowers will hover about 6-8 inches above the foliage. Tough as nails, really tough. If you break off the stems, it'll actually have a white milky sap to it, which keeps the animals off. It's a defensive to it. So I'm finding javelina are not eating mine. Rabbits are not bothering it. So even if you're in that wildland interface, I think you could plant this and they wouldn't bother you. Full sun. I grow it a little bit in the shade, but it tends to lean on me. It tends to want to reach some, so it looks kind of funky. So, but full sun, it just stays bushy by itself. But Rainbow Ascot Euphorbia, and you plant these two guys are companion plants. So blue, gold, classic design. Yeah. Thank you in the back. Yeah. You're starting to get it. Yeah. It's fun just to kind of play with the crowd. I don't know. I'm one of those. The more people in the crowd, the more power there is. So I like speaking and talking to folks and interacting. Each group has a different personality. By the way, I like this personality. Down and back though. Pansies. Pansies are just great here. I brought this because it's a first crop that we've grown of hanging baskets. We've had quite a few 4-inch things. This is just glorious. What I find for new folks, since half the group is new, I find they put these in the ground too late. So they'll come in, they see them in bloom for all spring. They come in and buy the last crop in May, and you can't water this enough in the summer. It just dies. I mean, it just falls over and goes, if it's above 85, because I'm hot, I'm dead. You should really plant these in the fall. So I plant these in September and October. I've had nonstop color since then, and I don't feel so bad when it dies off in June. I go, well, I wanted geraniums anyway. I was getting tired of you. You're too pretty. I want something else. So it's just sometimes they'll reseed. They'll kind of come up. If they get some shade, they might come back. But really, most folks plant these too late. This is a winter blooming flower. It loves the cold. When the snow lights on them, it'll be covered. And the second it starts melting, little flowers start popping up. It's the prettiest thing ever. So pansies, violas, your grandparents called them Johnny Jump Ups. Those are all related to each other, and they all do really great. This one, every animal is going to love this. So don't put it where the javelina, rabbits. In fact, if you want to mesmerize your guests, make a salad, pinch some flowers off. They're edible flowers. They don't really taste bad or good. They're just pretty. But you put some ranch dressing on everything, it tastes good. But they're like going, wow, you're such a good gardener. You know, it's a pansy. They're right up front. These two guys are related. This is called pinks. This is called carnation. They're cousins. They're the same thing, really. One's got a smaller flower, one's got a bigger flower, but they do really, really well. Great perennial flowers, and they're evergreen. That is, they keep this foliage year-round. This one gets quite big. I like to put this next to the edge of walkways because it has this nice silvery blue color, kind of reflects the moonlight and stuff in the evening. But it'll get about that tall, kind of mound shape, and just long bloom cycle. If you pinch that off, it will set another flower just like that. You can get this to bloom for months. Great perennial. Sun. Not Phoenix sun, though.
No.
I'm not there.
Sun, this is a native. More shade, although if you water it enough, it'll take sun. Columbine, this is the native Columbine. The yellow one grows naturally up in the mountains. We also have reds and blues and all kinds of colors down there as well. Mixed colors, bicolors. Bought this one because it's more the native variety. It will naturalize by itself, although it will bloom longer if you care for it. Fertilize it, water it. This is candy tuft. You'll see this growing wild out in the rock piles and stuff. This little evergreen, this cute little green thing blooms a long time in spring. This is tough. These two guys are kind of companions. This likes more sun, though, than this one does. The great candy tuft, Columbine. They're both good plants. Critters don't eat either one of those. They don't, no, critters won't bother those. Yeah, this I brought Ranoculus. I think it looks like a peony blossom. It's got real pretty, it's got no fragrance though. So it's a bulb that just kind of we've grown out. It blooms in the spring, and then it's just this nice green thing. Really, I plant this really early March, and it blooms through May, first part of June. Then I go, well, it's been done. I'm planting something else. So it's a good annual flower for us. Full sun. Ranoculus. There's some funky new colors over there. Got one that's white with this pink apple blossom kind of etching to it. It's really pretty. It's brand new. And the guy that grew those, he'll be here tomorrow. So he's coming up tonight. Tomorrow morning, tonight anyway. I don't know when he's coming up. This is related to California poppies, but this is an oriental poppy. I find it's got a bigger flower to it. Sometimes they're really big, like 4 or 5 inches across. But you'll notice, here I can probably show this. I can pass this around. You'll notice the stems are covered in hair. I'll pass it that way. That's a defensive mechanism the plant uses to keep rabbits from eating it, javelina from bothering it. Because they'll eat that, and that hair will get stuck in their throat and kind of going, and they graze on. We call that a biannual. Yeah. Oh, yeah, thank you. Okay. Give me your name, address, email, and you're automatically, I'm going to get some goodies from all the vendors tomorrow, and we'll put your name in the drawing for like, I don't know who will win. It's not guaranteed, but just put it down there. And I think you're kind of like high probability. So anyway, it would be good. Yeah, so anyway. Okay, so questions. Yes. Yes. Which one is a peony? I don't have peony up here. Oh, the snapdragons, Sky? Oh, this one? Oh, yeah. You can plant that right now. Absolutely right now. Pansies you can plant right now. Yeah, well, this is the most popular time. I would say plant it sooner rather than later, so that you've got 2-3 months to enjoy it. If you can give it some shade in the peak of the summer, I find it does kind of come back. It just takes more care than I really want to take. I don't want to water that much. I don't want to fertilize that much. I can give you a little secret. A couple things I should tell you. So the pinyon pine scale is out already, and aphids are out right now. They're eating the evergreens. If you have evergreens in your yard, you should protect them. So how do you do that? We make a product called Plant Protector. It's a liquid. And so what you do is you measure the circumference of that trunk. If it's 12 inches, you give it 12 ounces of this. You just pour it in your watering can. Top it off with water. The more water, the better. You pour this right at the crown, right where the trunk meets the ground. You pour it right there, and it will absorb this underneath the bark. And then it will taint. So scale watch, you take the needle, it'll go up and pierce that needle and suck the life out of it. This is the sap. This is kind of like an antibiotic for evergreens. Highly, highly effective on aphids, anything that eats bark beetle, Ips beetle, flathead borer, all the things that eat our trees. This is good. I'm seeing it's going to be bad. So it's way early it shouldn't be this bad so soon, but aphids never went away this winter. Yeah, I know it was cold a couple times. It was pretty mild, really, for the winter. It was pretty mild, so I think that's why they're sticking around. They don't die when it's freezing, no. And then secondly, fertilize now. Fertilize everything in the yard right now. March is the month. Put it on there and then pray for snow. Pray for more rain. Generally, March is a wet month for us, and so that's why you can take advantage of it. So we make our own fertilizer. This is called all-purpose plant food. It's an all-natural. It's cottonseed meal and bird guano, some fairy dust, iron, sulfur, but it really works. And you can use this on trees, evergreens, fruit trees. You can use it on the best lawn food you've ever seen. That's a bird guano in it. Makes things green like now. Flowers, just get it on there. And the beauty with organic foods is that it's going to break down the fertilizer over the next 3 months. So you get a much longer food cycle than, let's say, a chemical or oil-based, petroleum-based, like Scott's, Turf Builder, whatever. Those are very fast released, and it's gone through the soil faster than the plant can actually pick it up. This is made for us, by me, for you, made for your gardens. It really does work. It really does work. It's time to do it. Yeah, I take my hand spreader and I just sling it around the drip line. So don't focus. The mistake many people make is they focus it right on the trunk, and really the roots, the feeder roots, where the water and where the roots that pick up water and food, they're out at the drip line. So they're kind of halfway out the branch out this way. So most of the feeder roots here would be out here. So focus that food on that outer perimeter. You could almost just skip or forget the base, because all that's there is these big anchoring roots. The bark on those roots are so thick they can't even pull up food and water. Focus out here, and that'll really make a difference for you. Especially things that bloom. You want lilacs to bloom, you want fruit trees, and we make our own fruit tree food. It's a 6-4-4-7. We know that you are going to be lacking calcium in your gardens. We know it. It's what we deal with here. So we just put 7% calcium in this mix to help get you bigger fruits. If you want flavor, bigger tomatoes, more flavor out of them, it's calcium. So we just put that in our food. So anyway, there's a couple of them. I just want to point it out. It's time. You should do it now. Yeah.
The plant protector, that goes right next to the bark.
That's right. That's different. This is, yeah. This you don't put out the drip line. This you put right at the base. The fertilizers you put further out. It's different ways. Yeah, we'll coach you on that if you need help. You could use it with roses, although with roses I find, because I like roses, I love roses. I find the rose food with systemic, I get 2 steps with one thing. It's got the same stuff in a granular form. You could fertilize and do this at the same time, rather than doing 2 separate things. But I would love to sell you 2 separate things. So you can do that. That would do it. But I've got a rose food with systemic that's way easier to use and highly effective. We do get some aphids and thrip in the spring. We're kind of famous for our thrips. So they will take your first flowers if you don't do something. So the rose food with systemic is kind of what I do. Yeah. So how often do you have to fertilize? Depends on what it is, but mainly there's 3 main times you fertilize. Now, right before the rains come in July, end of June, first part of July, and then the most important feeding is October. So if you're thinking holidays, think Easter, 4th of July, and Halloween. Those are just real easy ways to remember. I find evergreens greatly benefit with New Year's. They're kind of going off color right now. You go through your neighborhood, they look kind of yellow. You see your red tip photinias kind of have this, it should be rich, dark forest green, they're kind of this off color. You fertilize it right then, it would stay rich green, just like that. So that's the difference. Yeah. I tell you what I can do, Ken, that email list that's going around, why don't we send them the how to fertilize guide? It's a 1-page guide, that 4-step. That's an easy one we can give to folks. It tells you what and when. It'd be real super easy. It's in a PDF format. You can open up on any device. That'll help you. Yeah, what else?
How often do you do the plant protector on, say, your evergreen? I've got a natural pinion in my backyard.
Yep, take care of
The
it.
only thing in my
Hey,
yard
thanks, you all.
is
Yeah, Once a year. One application does you for the year. Yep, that's why it's so easy. This is really, really easy. It seems complicated, but we can walk you through that, and it really makes a difference. For a nice big pinyon pine, because if you lose that, there is no recovery. Yep. So I would really care and nurture that. I would fertilize it with the all-purpose, and I would put this on once a year. Yep. Don't overdo it with natives, but they do respond to the gardener's touch and make a difference. Yeah.
What's the difference between the granular and that grow, the granular and the root and grow that you mix
Yeah.
up and,
I don't know that I brought root and grow, but I do have that. So I like the chemistry of gardening. I like killing things. Gophers, aphids, I like all that. That's kind of my thing. And so I like fertilizers because you can make a real difference if you get the right. Fertilizer is kind of like a cookie recipe. You get it right, and it's like, wow, oh my gosh, you could just enjoy it. Plants are the same, they'll enjoy a certain recipe. And so the difference between them, granular these are the meat and potatoes. This is the fruit tree food I was talking about. It's pelletized, so it's easy to spread. Lasts a long time, 3 months, organic. It's made for edible things, so grapes and berries and fruit trees and tomatoes, that kind of stuff. This one's made more for the evergreens, shrubs, lilacs, that kind of stuff. This is the original formula. Anyway, these are made to spread, long-term feeding. The root and grow, I make my own compost tea. So we boil up compost, feed it off, and when you open this up, it looks like molasses. It looks like fish emulsion, but it doesn't stink like fish emulsion. It's made really for houseplants, container gardens, transplant shock. When things first go in the ground, it's like they're freaking out. So they're going, it's like open heart surgery and brain surgery and all at the same time. They're gonna stress out. So that's made to soothe them. They like compost teas, and that encourages new roots. The more roots we can get as fast as we can, the more success you're going to have. So that's what the root and grow is. So that's down. You bring that up there, but you'll see that's something we make ourselves. The other one I can tell you too. I brought this up. This is a water. Do not use, for the love of gardening, don't use Miracle Grow. You will kill plants with that stuff. That is crap in a box. That's garbage in a box. It's not good. It's a salt-based fertilizer that works with our alkaline water that just does more damage than good. So I've stopped selling that because I had more customers killing things off than, I can make a buck on it. It's easy. Just stack it high, watch it fly. From a retail standpoint, it's foolish not to sell it. But people were killing their plants. And so we had to come up with something, a water soluble that they could add to their watering can. So we made this, Flower Power. This really does, if I dip my hat in this, it would start to bloom. It's almost that good. I mean, it's almost that good. It's made to keep, what I was having is Mother's Day weekend. Here's like this tidal wave of men with children buying flowers for moms. It's crazy. It's fun, actually. And hanging baskets are the big thing. Well, they were taking these home, and 3-4 weeks later, they would stop blooming. They have this beautiful green hanging basket, no flowers. They're going, what is going on? And so it was a lack of food. And so I made this really for that, getting container gardens to rebloom. And literally, if you got a wedding or a party, you're going to invite friends over, 2 weeks before the event, deadhead all the flowers, give it some of this, they will be in full bloom 2 weeks later. Just glorious, going, whoa, they're really a good gardener. I can't believe, how do you do that? I know this guy over at this garden center that taught me this, 2 weeks deadheading for fertilizer. It really makes things bloom. That's what it's for. I wouldn't waste it on like shrub kind of stuff. I use it mainly on my container, smaller rooted things. It seems to make a real difference. So you could use it, just more expensive. 1 scoop does a gallon of water. Anyway, that's some insider tips. I could go all day on this kind of stuff. Any last questions? Because we are an hour and 6 minutes into this. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I
Here you go.
bought a bunch of peonies.
Yep.
You guys planted them. They do nothing. I mean, I was so excited.
So two things.
First year, I knew they would.
Yeah. You can make them go. You can make them go. Now, do we have enough time? Because they're starting to grow. I think there's enough time, but I don't know for sure because mine are starting. Mine are already up, starting to grow. They haven't started. Two things with the peonies, because I've killed several of them. They have a real fleshy root. It's kind of like rhubarb, has a real fleshy root like that. And if they sit in soil that's real soggy, or if you overwater them, they will literally rot in the ground. So be careful of that. So if we planted, I'm sure we put a lot of mulch and stuff to help compensate for that, because we know that. But watch your watering. So I would say peony a couple times a week is more than adequate, even in the heat of summer for those.
Well, they grow great.
And then anything that blooms needs a lot of food. So for you specifically, what I would do, I didn't bring it up here, but just friend to friend, there's a product down there called Super Phosphate. It's 0,18,0. So the way these work, so 744, nitrogen, phosphorus, potash. Nitrogen is green growth. This is kind of the chemistry of fertilizers. Middle number is phosphorus. That's what causes roots and blooms. And then potash, that's like wood ash, those kinds of things. That's for disease hardiness. That's for stem sturdiness. That's what that's for. You want to focus on that middle number. So if you could put this on and add the superphosphate, you just took that bumped it by 18%. I also do that little trick with this guy here. You can make this bloom like crazy. So about every 4 or 6 weeks, phosphorus is sort of like a Snickers bar for plants. So if you kind of give it a little shot, I'll just throw a handful. When it gets done blooming, like in June, I'll just throw a little bit of phosphorus on it, superphosphate. It'll go right back into bloom. You can have this thing covered nonstop with flowers from April through October, just by giving it a little bit more phosphorus. Makes a big difference. Russian sage, same way. That's that big spiky blue shrub. Many times we'll plant these together. I like Russian sage with this in front because it's a little bit taller, blue and reds, looks really good. You can keep that thing. If you don't fertilize Russian sage enough, it'll get kind of this off. Is it blooming? Is it not blooming? What's it doing? Give it some phosphorus and it just goes blue, like glow in the dark blue continually. It really makes a difference. This is Salvia, or autumn sage is the common name. Autumn sage. Comes in white, apricot, purple, several pinks, reds, a lot. We're trying to introduce more of these because they're so tough. And the reason they call it sage, when you rub the foliage, it smells like sage, which is why the animals don't eat it. It's a defense this plant puts on it. What's that? Oh, this will work in a pot easy. Oh yeah, I grow several in a pot. Yeah, it would grow for a year in this pot, but I would bump it up to the next size pot so you get some fudge factor. This pot it would grow in, but it dries out faster. The more soil you give a plant, the more forgiveness you get. So anyway, one last and I'll leave you. While you're fertilizing, weeds, don't let weeds take over your rock lawn or your flower beds. They will become terrible. Tumbleweeds will grow the size of VW beetles. I mean, it's ridiculous. Horehound is already up this tall. It's an impossible weed to get rid of. It's got a root that goes to China. Don't let those weeds get established. And the way you do that here at Waters Garden Center is you put down weed and grass stopper. So I'll spread this typically when I'm spreading my fertilizer. I just take my hand spreader and I spread it where I generally have weeds. This is not going to hurt like my roses. Roses are hard to weed because you got those, you look like you've been in a cat fight by the time you get done weeding them. So I don't want to weed those. So I'll put this around my roses and it doesn't affect the rose. It only affects the seed that come up at the base of the roses. So if there's a place that's really difficult to weed, this is a game changer. Out by the street, I hate weeding out by the street because I know all the neighbors are looking at me. There's Ken again, trying to outdo us in our gardens. Oh my gosh. I'll just weed it. This is my weed. This reduces work by 95%.
How long does it last?
Lasts for about 6 months. I find I do it twice a year. I'll do it now because the winter weeds are coming up right now. So foxtail's already up, dandelion's already this big, bull thistle's already this big. If you could have done it a month ago, it would have been perfect, but we're just getting started. So do it now, and then I try to do it right before the rains come in, sometime in the summer around July 4th, the monsoon rains start to come. Get it down then, and that's when that goat head, horehound, tumbleweeds, that's when those things start. Elms, works on the elm seeds coming up. But it'll really reduce the work, and a bag covers, I think, 7,200 square feet. So that's a lot. One bag, it goes farther than fertilizer, but that's something I can give you that will really reduce the work you got in the yard this year. Last question from her first, Mr. Chino Valley. Yep. It is a pre-emergent, yes. We sell this one. In fact, the guy that sells that, makes that, he'll be here tomorrow. So maybe I can get him to talk. Maybe I'll do a radio. That'd be a good radio interview. Have him on. That'd be great to explain it. But it's a pre-emergent. We sell that one over others because it's got the broadest effectiveness on our weeds that grow up here. So we like this one better. We've tried a lot of them. It's some weeds just don't listen. They don't read the label. They keep growing. This one seems to do better. Hey, Andy, we're just talking about your weed and grass stopper. Right on. Cool. Yeah, there we go. There's the guy. He's coming in early. With that, I'll leave it because we can keep going. I'll just hang. But I didn't get I get Chino Valley. I got to get you first, and then I'll just hang up here. You can look at the plants, and we'll just gardeners hanging out. Yeah. What about
the post-emergent weeds?
Post-emergent weeds? If they're already coming up, that's shovel or pull or just work. Or there's some sprays. I've got a couple sprays down there that are much safer than Roundup. Roundup will cause cancer. I mean, it's deadly. I stopped selling it years ago. As soon as I saw those studies, I'm going, I'm not selling that to my customers because I'm the guy that's going to get cancer, not you. I'm selling it all day long. I'm in the warehouse with this stuff. So we've got some much safer stuff down there. And we use it here at the garden center. Highly effective. And it's effective when it's cold at night. So it's effective even now. Whereas Roundup, you try Roundup now, it doesn't do a thing. It needs to be summer temperatures for that. So we can talk offline. It's at the weed section. We'll kind of talk. Thanks for coming, you all. I'll let you clap. Thanks for tuning in, you all. Appreciate you being here. Yeah. Get rid of that. This. And I'll send that fertilizer.
Should we do better in a barrel, the Salvia or the Heather?
They would do equally well. They have totally different looks. The Salvia is going to bloom a little bit longer.